Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Martha Wolf Show. Today, we're going to talk about how to improve your dating outcomes by BPD maxing. This camera needs to come down. And a bunch of other fun topics. Oh, yes, the ethnogenesis of the Wasian. Very exciting, very cool. But first, David Santa Carla says, this is how you cast a fucking remake. Highlander 1986 versus Highlander 2026. So I found that so interesting. Like, such a similar facial structure, and yet such an improvement. Something with the brow ridge in the first guy. Subtle, right? Like, it's subtle. Something about the mouth, something about the brow ridge, and that's really it. That's all there is, but it's very different. Much improved. Let's see what else we've got. Ethnogenesis is the formation and development of an ethnic group. Genesis meaning beginning, coming into being, and ethnos referring to a group of people or nation. And this can originate by group self-identification or outside identification. It refers to the observable phenomenon of the emergence of new social groups that are identified as having a cohesive identity. And now that we know that, it becomes clear that perhaps we are living through a time where we can observe the ethnogenesis of the Wasian people. Isn't that exciting? Not everyone thinks it's exciting, though. Not everyone's as positive about this development as me. So let's see who's critical
and look-alike
and
contests of numerous Wasians. We need to have a serious conversation about Wasians. So this past week...
give me a second. Did not pay my headphones. Give me a second. What's this account name, huh? Mad Tsai. And let's see what he has to say. Sorry, give me a second. Connect. Okay, let's see.
We need to have a serious conversation about Wasians. So this past weekend, an event was hosted, marketed as a Wasian meetup, with hundreds of half-white, half-Asian people coming to attend and compete in look-alike contests.
How cute is that? That is so cute. They're all meeting up. There's like hundreds of them on a field. Putting Wasian signs that say Wasian.
Of numerous Wasian celebrities. On the surface, this is completely harmless and a fun idea. However, the people that started this event are part of an organization called Half Asia Spring. Half Asia Spring, in their own words on their Instagram, said that their mission is to create half Asian meetups around the United States. However, every single video posted to this account only mentions Wasians. Every single flyer only mentions Wasians. It's only marketed as a Wasian meetup. So that begs the question, why are you marketing an inclusive mixed Asian community gathering when
it's pretty clear he's like salty that he's not part of it? It's just so obvious. Like, at some point, just step back. There are so many ethnic groups. So many. Like, there are hundreds. Obviously bigger and smaller ones. And you're not going to be part of all of them. It's okay. You know, just... they're happy and proud to be who they are, and I guess you're not a part of that, but you're part of other really large and prominent ethnic groups. Like, where's the stress here?
It's centered only around white mixed Asian people. It is currently API month, and we are celebrating all Asian identities, but it's been apparently clear that...
So he's comfortable with celebrating Asian identity, and he's comfortable with whatever that website was called, something about Asian mixed people, but he's not comfortable that they're mixed with white people. Like, is this an anti-white thing? I'm not really clear if it is.
This year has had the most spotlight on the Wasian identity, a term coined to refer to someone with one white parent and one Asian parent. We have talented athletes and performers like Alyssa Liu, Leve, Hudson Williams, Charles Melton, and so on, and we've seen Wasians surge to the top of pop culture. We've even seen Wasians being solely represented in our media, such as Leve's music video for Mad Women, which includes many of these Wasian celebrities which I just listed. On one hand, it makes me really happy, and it's genuinely beautiful to see people with Asian heritage succeed and be openly celebrated in the mainstream. The API...
See? He's happy that people with Asian heritage are being celebrated and doing stuff culturally. But it's the Asian part's fine, but the white part's not fine. See? Maybe that's why the Wasians are getting together and celebrating and talking to each other and making friends with each other and forming an identity around being Wasian, because one side of them is constantly being discriminated. You're just doing exactly that. That's probably what's driving them to do that partly. You know? That's probably an uncomfortable place to be, constantly hearing discriminatory rhetoric about whites when you're half white. That's still half your family. Like, you're going to have cousins and, you know, one of your parents and your uncles and aunties and stuff are still going to be white on one side. So you still have an identity that's linked in with that. Like, how uncomfortable is that? How do you deal with that? Well, they're going to get together and they're going to all have the same feelings about it or similar feelings. And they're going to form an ethnic group that's kind of living in harmony with the two sides of them. I think that's a really beautiful thing. I don't feel particularly threatened by this, but I'm in the same position as this guy. Like, I'm only half represented in their identity, but where's the issue here? Like, it's kind of a cool thing. People come together and people mix, and that's what's happened throughout history, and it does give rise to new ethnicities.
Community is very broad, and there's so many unique cultures that encapsulate the API identity. On the other hand, it does leave a weird taste in my mouth that I really haven't been able to articulate until I saw this meetup. So a little backstory. My dad immigrated from Taiwan and my mom was born of Canton Peruvian descent in LA. So no, I've never felt quite understood in my cultural identity nor my place in American culture.
He's not part of the Wasians, basically. He's more to the side of the Asians with his ethnic mixture. And I think where this can... I think, like, if I'm just going to read between lines a little bit and see where the frustration's coming from, because, like, I don't feel the frustration. Like, for me, I could potentially, like, go out there and make a Wasian baby, and then my baby could be part of the Wasian community. So it's like, that's an option that's on the table. My children can go out, and if they choose to, and if that's something that aligns with their preferences and their personality and all that kind of life circumstances, they can find an Asian spouse and make a Wasian baby. I don't feel excluded from the Wasian community. I'm not like, oh, I want access to your fun and your, like, oh no, like, this doesn't include me. No, like, I don't feel any resentment. I'm certainly not part of it, but I certainly have no resentment towards it. But this guy, I'm going to read through the lines here and say it may be limiting. It might feel as if it's limiting, whether this really is or not. He may perceive it as limiting his access to women, perhaps. The Wasian woman is probably going to be a little bit taller, maybe a little bit larger frame than an Asian woman. That doesn't tend to... I mean, even Asian women are very, very happy to date outside of the Asian gene pool. Like, Asian women are extremely likely. I think like 20% of Asians in the US date, or I don't know if that's like on Tinder. There was some data I read that they will, or was it actually married? It could have been marriage data. Anyway, it's a significant number of them that will mix with white men. Mostly, maybe some Hispanic as well, but like mostly white men. So of course it's leaving Asian men, they're hemorrhaging women out of their community, and maybe this is kind of adding like another layer of that to the Asian male might be threatening in a way that's not to me. Just an idea, you know. I can't say much. Just, if you are raising an Asian boy child, feed that child really, really well, so it gets as tall as possible. That's all I can say, because then height makes such a big difference for men when it comes to access to women, and potentially they'll have access to a range of partners then.
So I can relate on some fronts to Asians who are seeking out a community of people who've had similar upbringings, but it's also given me a unique view on Asian American identity politics and how whiteness is constantly centered in so many of our conversations. Black Asians and Hispanic Asians are never acknowledged in the mainstream the way that white mixed Asians are, and this meeting has highlighted just how out of touch the sentiment around mixed Asian identity is.
Yeah, but there's so like much smaller numbers of the other mixes. Someone else put like a stat of like white of all Asian mixes, it's like 80% white mixed with Asian, and then there's littler amounts of other ethnicities mixed with Asian. So you know,
The Asian American identity is inherently rooted in being assimilated into the American identity while celebrating and preserving our own Asian heritage. So this feeling of not belonging isn't exclusive to Asian people. This meeting was not grounded in any
right, but they have a particular identity that includes having white genetic and cultural heritage, and also having white features, and also the same from the Asian side. But that's something that you don't share in, correct? So, and I also don't share in the one side of that. So it is unique and it's cool, and like that is how new ethnicities come about. Like the Icelandic population is like Irish slave women mixed with Viking men who stole them and like enslaved them and raped them, obviously, or whatever. And that's the Icelandic people now. And I'm sure you can genetically test and they'll be like, oh, you're Icelandic. Like it's a particular combination of sequences, and like those are still more closely related. Like the Irish and the Vikings would have been more closely related than the whites and the Asians. Like it's a unique mix. It's interesting. I don't consider, let me be clear though, that I don't consider Wasian an ethnicity right now. That's why I'm saying it's the ethnogenesis of Wasians. And basically the way that that would work is when you mix a white with it. So let's say I'll get an Asian husband and then we have a child. So it would be a random half of his genetics and a random half of my genetics. I'm trying to, so it depends. It's so the child doesn't have all white genetics on one side. It's whatever specifically is in me. Like if I have brown eyes, it's hard to say, right? If I was a brown-eyed white woman, it would be hard to say, have I passed a blue-eyed gene or a brown-eyed gene onto that child? It's hard to say exactly what's on one side. With an Asian father, it would be pretty clear that the other side of the genome would code for like dark brown eyes. And then same with the hair color, like my side would be coding for whatever this light brown color that I have. And then the Asian side would be coding the dark brown color. And so it's like that. So it's very split, right? Very split. You have the one side and the other side. But an ethnic group, once they start having children with each other, like if you get a Wasian and a Wasian, and then they have a baby, that baby's still half white, half Asian technically, but it's no longer clear cut that one side is this and one side is that. Now that's my understanding of it. I'm happy to be corrected, but this is just my take on it, okay? So then the Wasian and the Wasian, hypothetically, now example, they have a child, still a Wasian child, right? But over time, some Wasians, right, they're going to get like, they're going to be like really, really, really nerdy, like really, really, really hardworking, like Asian. Like they're going to have tend more towards the Asian behavior. They might have fewer children because East Asians have really few children. They might have fewer children than another Wasian that takes, for whatever reason, takes a little bit more after the white side, maybe is a little bit more extroverted, a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit more out there, and maybe a little bit ADHD, stuff like that. That Wasian is going to have more children. So within the Wasian community, you're going to have this change, this genetic shift. It's not always going to be, even if it's just Wasians marrying Wasians, marrying Wasians, marrying Wasians, having babies, and you do that for like 4 generations, let's say. It's not going to be like, oh, the child just ends up being, like that great-great-grandchild end up being exactly half white, exactly half Asian. It's going to be like the genes of the white ancestors that were the most advantageous are going to come through. And I'm not saying that I prefer, I'm not saying genes that I personally prefer. I'm saying the ones that were most advantageous. And the genes of the Asian parent that were the most advantageous are going to survive. So how cool is that? You get this really aggressive, like, moment of selection where you have a variety, like you get this real variation in children because so many different genes coming together, and then selection pressure will be like pretty intense as well. And what you're going to find is that like some genes will just get kicked out and some genes will become more common. But I wonder, this is very superficial, and I guess it doesn't really matter because it's a superficial trait, but I wonder if things like lighter hair color, lighter skin color, lighter eye color will be selected for more, because there is some data to suggest, I've read once, it's been a while since I've read that though, that blonde women, and once again, I don't even know if that excludes dyed blonde hair. I'm really hoping it just talks about like genetic blonde, have more children than like brown haired women. So I don't know. There is sexual selection. Obviously, females sexually select men, but men also sexually select females. So you could argue that perhaps as Wasians, if they do this ethnogenesis thing, which would be really cool to see because it's just so interesting, if they would tend towards lightening their color a little bit because it would be advantageous. Like the females would be selected maybe at a younger age and end up having more offspring if they're a little bit lighter. It's really hard to say.
A specific cultural identity, but aesthetic. Wasian is a broad term that encompasses all Asian cultures that have been mixed. Aki Lee Camargo, a journalist, makes a great point in an essay published to a Substack, and he states, Wasianness is hollow because it isn't rooted in anything beyond phenotype. There is no shared history, no cultural heritage that exists independently of the way they look.
What? That is so rude. What are they saying? It's not rooted in anything beyond phenotype. Well, no, it's the genotype. Where do you think the phenotype comes from? That is so stupid. There's no shared history. Well, yes, there is. It depends where their parents came from. One come from East Asia and one come from usually Western Europe. I'm not saying that there isn't Eastern Europeans and Southern Asians or whatever, but like this is talking about East Asians mixing into, and it kind of depends where. Like if they're doing like a Wasian meetup in Australia, it would most commonly be a Western European, probably Northwestern European person, because that's like the most common ethnicity around here, with an East Asian. So it would be pretty clear. They would have a pretty clear shared heritage, and their experiences would be shared too. Like why, there's no shared history. Well, is a history of migration not a history? I mean, does history have to be like 1,000 years ago all the time? Can history just be like, oh, my mom comes from this kind of cultural background, this kind of culture, like we understand that, but we also understand what it's like to be raised in a more Western culture. I mean, that is shared identity, it's a shared experience. No, it says here, no cultural heritage that exists independently of the way they look, and that's just so silly. Like you just come into existence and you just like enter straight into school, or you have a family, you have the stories of your parents, you have a certain upbringing, you have one parent saying one thing, another parent saying another thing. Like I think from knowing Asians and from obviously knowing white people, I think I can definitely imagine that there's quite a lot of shared experience and probably shared struggles with all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily like, oh, I don't belong, oh, it's so negative, like I'm such an emo, like the Wasian emo or something. I don't know, why can't it be positive? If they, like, the reason it can be a bit down and a bit sad to be of a mixed heritage is because you feel isolated. This is what they're trying to combat. They're trying to meet up together and be like, yeah, like, oh, we have the same struggles. Oh, we understand each other. Like now it's a source of relating to other people, and that's what makes people happy, right? And then here it comes down to what they're actually annoyed about. It says, you cannot include whiteness in your label and then claim to represent everyone. Well, they're not trying to represent everyone. They're claiming to represent Wasians. Like, literally, what's the problem here? Like, I think this is a really cool thing, and I really hope they keep doing what they do, and I would be very interested to see that. I want, like, family trees. I want complexity. I want people to go through and get nerdy about it because it's cool.
The way they look. He goes even farther by saying, if Wasian identity begins and ends with aesthetics, that's eugenics. So we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, that Wasian privilege does exist. It's extension of white privilege. There is a socioeconomic advantage that comes from having a white parent. Not always the case, but having a parent who is white comes with inherent perks.
That's so silly when like white people, I'm just going to talk about like the US, but even Britain, like they're less likely to go to university and like do well at school and stuff like that. Like you get this really broad range of social classes among the whites. Like what are you even talking about? This is so silly. No, I think this is, I actually legitimately think this is really false. You know, I think they legitimately have a shared experiences, and shared grievances and things like that. I don't think they're coming from a place of, oh yeah, we're half white. Oh, therefore we're so privileged. I really don't think so. But even if they were, that's their right. They should totally be free to do that. Obviously, it's okay to be proud too, you know? Men's top don't want in a spouse is overweight. So there was a survey about stated partner preferences. Wants versus don't wants. So let's have a look at this. Da-da-da. Men wants kind, fit, funny, smart. And the women wants, why do they put it all in blue? Anyway, kind, funny, muscular, which is like, I guess, similar to fit, right? That's kind of like the male equivalent of fit. Smart. It's really similar. That's cute. I thought that was cute. You know, there's a lot of this like men versus women, gender hate stuff, but like we kind of want the same thing. We just want to be understood and have a bit of fun and be attracted and stuff like that. Then it goes, so men want in women nice smile, loyal, long hair. I think long hair, a lot of these things can kind of be grouped into like you look healthy. Like long hair is like a sign of health, or maybe that you have some expendable time that you're able to groom yourself. It could be like a mix of health and mental health with long hair. Pretty face. Of course, we're back to just like pure genetic quality at this point, and like developmental quality as well. Nice eyes. The nice eyes things always throw me off a bit, because what are not nice eyes? Like, have you ever looked at someone and gone, wow, that person has ugly eyes? I don't know. Maybe it's just not how I think. Some people have really small eyes and like you can't really see the white. So it's like, I can't even really do it. It's like, and you're like, what? And they become a lot less expressive, because a lot of our expressiveness is like looking over here and looking there, and you can see the whites of my eyes. And that's telling you like, oh, I'm thinking of something, or oh, look at this thing over here. And like, it's a lot of how we communicate. Yeah, the lack of whites of the eyes in some people is disturbing. Maybe that's what nice eyes refers to. Curvy, big butt, so like body fat distribution. Honest is way too low down, I'm not gonna lie, but you know. Ambitious, you know, yeah, confident, that's the same sort of thing. Big boobs. Yeah, but where's small boobs, you know? Like it's a bit it's just not high up. But I don't know what if they were given options or if they were able to like freely write things out. Probably they had options. Anyway, curly hair, I find that weird. But it's like the lowest preference, but it's still a preference. I'm surprised that curly hair would go above straight hair? Was straight hair an option? I don't know. I guess long hair kind of contradicts curly hair. It's really hard to have long hair and also curly hair. And yeah, with it's really not that different, but respectful. I don't think that's in the male preferences at all. What about small boobs? Says Angry Aussie. Yeah, I know. I don't know. The thing is, you'd have to actually see the survey to know what was given as an option. Like, is it just like you can just not prefer big boobs? Because yeah, it's always the same. And I'm just gonna say the same thing. Like whenever that topic comes up, I will always say, why are men attracted to larger breasts and bottoms? Well, this is what I always say. Well, it's usually one or the other as well, but I've never fully understood it. What we talked about the other day is if you're lower socioeconomic, member, if you're lower socioeconomic background, or you're hungry, so like your body feels like, oh no, I'd better go acquire some resources, like I'm hungry, maybe something has been triggered in your brain at that time, then men prefer larger breasts in women than when they're comfortable and they're satiated. But the whole big breast thing to me is crazy, because if you see a woman and she's not obese, like a healthy woman with big breasts, if they're naturally that way, almost always you're breastfeeding. You're telling me men are attracted more to women with infants. I find it really odd, but that is the way it is. I can't deny the data. I can't deny it. It's just weird to me. What the heck? Make it make sense. Like, what, you want a woman with like a 4-month-old baby, like with engorged breasts because she's breastfeeding? Why would you? You're not even fertile at that point. When you're heavily breastfeeding, it suppresses your cycle. So it's very weird. Naturally large breasts are really rare, so they can't be selected for very much. Women want kind, funny, muscular, smart, nice smile, fit, loyal, nice eyes. Again, I think the nice eyes thing, the way I would interpret that is that people want to feel a sense of comfort when they look in someone's face. They don't want to be like, what the heck, what's going on with this person? Like, I think it's more about the way you respond to that person's face. And people interpret it as going, oh, like I can look into your eyes. It's like, you can look into someone's eyes when you're not, I guess, disturbed by some other feature that they have, maybe like a hideous nose, or like some horrible baldness, or God knows what. And maybe people interpret that as nice eyes. I don't know. Respectful. Respectful. Okay, it's not at the top, but I think disrespectful. Women don't want rude. Okay, rude is disrespectful, right? Rude is disrespectful. And that's like the top things that they don't want. And I found that so interesting because, and arrogant is the next one, which is like arrogance makes you act rude. So it's really kind of the same thing. That is so interesting. And yeah, please like take note if you know a young man, you know, he's looking for someone, please like don't be rude and don't be arrogant. It is crazy. And even me as like a woman where I'm not looking for a sexual partner or anything like that, but when I see young men being rude, it really bothers me. It bothers me so much. Sometimes I see, like, I'm around people and there's a young man acting arrogant, proud, rude, dismissive, making little like mumbled comments. This thing that men do where young men, where they mumble nasty comments. It's really horrible, and they do it sometimes around like older women who are not gonna get it. Like, they're not living in the same, you know, social media like subculture. They don't understand the lingo and stuff. It's like, and I'm kind of in that between age where I'm like, nah, I really, really don't like that. That is awful. The rudeness in men, like, that's not even talked about. The rudeness of men. Everyone talks about violence and rape. Yeah, okay, for sure. But like just the everyday rudeness, like the difference of how men, and I mean like young, I don't mean men like over 50 or over 60 or something like that. I don't mean like low testosterone grandpas. I mean like younger men. The difference in how they treat you when you're sexually attractive to them versus when you're not sexually attractive to them. Like, if you just go through a pregnancy, the difference in how you're treated by men is enormous. Women, not so much. If anything, women will be like, oh, are you okay? And like, do you need to see? Or a lot more sympathetic. It depends. Not all women. Not all women, for sure. A lot of them just neutral. But men can be very yielding and very nice and very kind when they're attracted to you, when you're looking good. And as soon as that's what I experience. As soon as the middle of my body is heavy because I've got a baby in there, as soon as I'm waddling as soon as I'm huffing and puffing, like my face gets like puffy. I get utterly dismissed, ignored, scorned, like just frowned upon by men. It's nuts. It's not safe out there. Like, seriously. Overweight, bad hygiene, bad teeth, so like just being disgusting, I guess. Like just don't be disgusting. Good grooming is like really, really good. Like teach your children good grooming from a young age. Just like head to toe. What do you do to keep every part of you like decent? Just decent. Lazy, selfish. Yeah, that captures like a lot of dudes as well. Controlling. Beard. Oh, okay. Beard is like what they don't want. They don't want a beard. But then I think beard was in here too, wasn't it? Ah, okay. Bald. Don't be bald and don't have a beard. Long hair. Don't have long hair either. Obviously, this is like way down on the graph, so whatever. Smoking, drinking, piercings. And I think that smoking, drinking, piercings are also on the what men don't like in women's side. Bad teeth, piercings, tattoos, lazy. Ah, it's like you can just imagine that person. Like I have just such a beautiful picture of that person in my mind. Makeup. Yeah, that's a strange one because, I think what people mean by that is like obvious makeup where you're like, oh my gosh, you're wearing a lot of makeup, like straight away. That's what they mean by it. But obviously, makeup makes you more attractive. Like just a little bit of makeup will make you more attractive to most people. It's like pretty obvious. Like, and once again, the way people treat you, you wear a bit of makeup is a lot better. Selfish, smoking, controlling, bald. Oh, bald in a woman. Yeah, I mean, that's not really something that happens much, is it? Okay. So they're good. We live in an era you can just look this up and you're good. You can correct yourself a little bit. Oh, this was funny. I can't pronounce the name. Midwits ask, where's this coming from instead of is this true? Because they're inherently suspicious of any thought emerging from individual intelligent minds rather than from prevailing social consensus. And so it's a Wayne Rowcliffe says, the thing I really want to know, and I hope one of you can enlighten me on this, but I've had literally dozens of people come after me with this modern men are given responsibility without authority line. Where on earth did this come from? Who is telling them this? So the criticism here is that it's assuming that if you have an opinion, you say something, you observe something, or you think something, it has to be like a meme that's sweeping through society. But I think that could be true. Modern men are given responsibility without authority. That probably is a meme that's come through. So I don't really think Wayne Rowcliffe is wrong here necessarily. But even if it's a meme, even if it's like, oh, like, I guess the whole Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself meme, like it goes through and it kind of sweeps through social media and people, you probably should still address it. I mean, whether it's a meme or not, it's something that people, it resonates with people. That's why they're repeating it, right? It's like it's treating other people as if they're just hollow, brain dead entities. It's really it's disrespectful. And then the other one is, Taoki says, at least 100 replies here mention some variation of, you're not a soul who rolled a dice with what body to inhabit. You're you because of your parents. Where's this coming from? It's all too similar for it to be genuine. Who started this idea and why? I guess people are a little bit worried about like bots and just things being kind of repeated in the same fashion. But yeah, people can think similar things and like anyway, even if things are memes, that's what I would say. They're probably right. It probably is some sort of meme that's come through, but still address it. I mean, still address it and be like, oh, you're all saying the same thing. Well, yeah, but still address it though. Anyway, the midwit mentality is just trying to. I guess if you're not a midwit, it's like you understand. Okay, yeah, it's a meme. Like everything's a meme. Saying, "Hey, how you going?" is a meme, right? Like it's all like that. All these things, a lot of things people say, it's just it comes in and it's just repeated back out. People aren't actually sitting and being like, the next person I meet, what am I gonna say to them? what do I really feel inside that I'm gonna say? Like, it's not how it works. People just da 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 da. Like, it's just all shit. It's just all regurgitated bullshit. But then we measure each other's cognition on what stuff we can regurgitate, basically, for the most part. Not, oh, this is so funny. So that we're going to talk about BPD maxing and how it's going to improve your dating life. Drum roll. There is a whole article here. As in side post, do you want to receive notifications? No. Men are drawn to borderline personality traits in physically attractive women, study finds. So, preemptively, I suppose we should say that all the advice that follows and all the recommendations and tangents I'm going to go on only apply if you're at least, you have to be good looking, okay? You're like fat, I'm sorry, this is not going to apply to you. But you have a different route to take. You can do the whole, I'm a really good Christian girl, I swear I'm never going to do anything, you know, like, I'm very submissive, I'm not like the other girls, and I totally, like, everything you say, I believe. That's what you're gonna do, okay? You're gonna practice that because that's gonna be your route to a decent quality guy. If you're not good looking. Now, if you are good looking, have a look at this. Those with borderline personality disorder have problems regulating emotional impulses and often experience rocky relationships. But new research suggests that many men find traits associated with borderline personality disorder to be appealing in physically attractive women. The study has been published online in the Journal of Personality and Individual Differences. The research was inspired by a viral parody video in which a man provides scientific sounding advice about relationships between a woman's physical appearance, personality, and her dating appeal. I'm pretty sure it's this whole like smart, crazy to good looking ratio or something like that. But then they did actual research. They did actual research on the basis of that. That's hilarious. I stumbled across the hot crazy matrix. The hot crazy matrix. Okay, that's an old meme too. YouTube video and was struck by its popularity and media coverage it had attracted. It got me thinking about why it resonates with so many people, explained study author Alison Blanchard, a senior lecturer at Bishop's Grosseteste University. I'm an evolutionary psychologist, and my earlier research had examined adaptive characteristics of psychopathic traits and how they might be appealing in a romantic partner. That is, the familiar notion of women being attracted to bad boys even though it is evident that the boy is bad for them. The hot crazy matrix basically asks whether the same could be said for men being attracted to crazy women, in quotation marks. The reason for the popularity of the HCM is because we have ourselves or known someone who has been in a turbulent relationship with someone who was emotionally unstable and have been warned off of them by despairing friends and family who cannot understand why anyone would stay in the relationship, Blanchard said. However, the upside of this instability is that these individuals might be exciting to be with in terms of sensation-seeking and being impulsive. The relationship is like a roller coaster where the highs are very high and the lows are very low, and this is why people probably stay in these types of relationships because of the uncertainty and drama. The HCM therefore provides a framework for testing what we already know about mate preferences from evolutionary psychology, but this time from a man's point of view. Yeah, so there's a lot to be said about this, but I just wanted to go to the BPD diagnostics, like just to get wrap our heads around what we're talking about here. 9 symptoms of BPD in females: impulsivity, chronic feelings of emptiness, self-harm, high rejection sensitivity, unstable self-image, fear of abandonment, emotional instability, bursts of rage, separation anxiety, and paranoid thoughts. And apart from separation anxiety, paranoid thoughts, paranoid thoughts could really be in the OCD. Like, a lot of this is not real, right? Like, a diagnosis is not real. But we see things cluster, like traits cluster. And then we're like, okay, we're going to call this cluster of traits this thing. That's all the diagnosis. It's just a model. It's something you can draw on paper. It's something you can then diagnose, and then you can get funding. You can use it to have certain exemptions or whatever. That's why we have these labels, right? The labels are helpful because they describe these classes, but that doesn't mean it's like autism will cluster in and overlap with like people becoming trans, and autism overlaps with ADHD quite heavily. Now this impulsivity, rejection sensitivity, emotional instability, and bursts of rage, they could all be classified under ADHD if you ask my opinion. Separation anxiety, I don't know. It seems to be ADHD, but ADHD, the whole diagnostics and the whole field is based off mainly younger men. Boys, teenagers, men, okay? Male. And so if you add feminine characteristics into ADHD, what are you going to get? Because the main difference between men and women in terms of their personality and their temperament is women are much more fearful. They are much less confident. They are fearful of rejection. What's in here? Rejection anxiety, right? Separation anxiety. Was it something? Rejection sensitivity. That's going to be a more female trait, because once you put testosterone on the fetus that's developing, you're going to reduce those traits in the brain, right? Basically, the BPD, and I'm not saying men can't be diagnosed with it, because of course there are feminine men. Like, there are men with eating disorder, but it's going to be like 95% female. It's like, this sounds like the similar thing. They're trying to draw up a diagnostic, and it just, because it involves so much anxiety and fear, it's going to be mostly women. And the diagnostics are probably designed around groups of women that they have been like, okay, you guys are all similar, is what I'm trying to say here. But if you took that into consideration, if you were actually asking the question, not, oh, what's the best way of diagnosing that, but if you were asking the question, what is actually genetically going on here? So you would think, okay, let's take the anxiety part of this away and the fear part, because this is actually very common for females. What is left? Emotional instability, rage, which is the same thing. So you have prefrontal cortex not functioning very well. So control of instincts, self-image, so like self-narration. So certain parts of the brain are not well developed here. And I reckon this ADHD and psychopathy and perhaps a little bit of OCD, this is probably all extremely overlapping. Anyway, that's the basis on which I'm then going to comment. But putting all this aside, this is sort of a tangent on how they diagnose these things and how it's categorized, and like taking it all with a grain of salt. And just remember, when we're talking about all this mental illness and all these kind of diagnoses, just to step back and be like, okay, someone sat in boardrooms and someone sat in meetings and they're drawing diagrams and they're trying to diagnose in a way that they can move forward with, and it has to do with making it feasible and making it fundable. But quite apart from that, something about these traits, so it's a hyperfeminine and a lack of self-control. That's what we're talking about here. That's what the BPD phenotype is. And something about that is extremely attractive to men. Now, let's keep reading. However, the upside of this instability is that these individuals might be exciting to be with in terms of, in 2 studies, which include 525 English-speaking adults, participants were asked to evaluate the dating appeal of hypothetical individuals. The participants viewed a facial photograph of each target individual along with a brief biography. The profiles varied in their level of facial attractiveness, psychopathic, and borderline personality traits. There you go. So they're grouping it together because it's just so hard to separate. That's what I think. And wealth. For example, Those high in psychopathic and borderline personality traits were described as someone who would like to flute the rules and was quite intense and a bit wild, driving fast and taking drugs. They were also described as someone with a lot of relationship dramas who was anxious and self-critical. In line with previous research, Blanchard and her colleagues found that personality traits and wealth status were the most important factors in predicting dating appeal among female participants. Note here, why is it loading? Why are you loading? Note here that the wealth of a woman has to do with her dating appeal. Just saying, that is not commonly recognized. I think it's something important to recognize, okay? Anywho, women in the study tended to prefer partners who were high in wealth and low in psychopathic traits, even when they were rated as low in facial attractiveness. So the men prefer... Oh. I'm gonna have to take that back. What did she say? Sorry, I'm so sorry. Found that personality traits and wealth status were the most important factors in predicting dating appeal among female participants. I'm sorry, I take that back. So to the females. I thought they meant like of the females. To the females. Personality and wealth are the most important. Okay, now it's making more sense. To the women, wealth and having a good personality, so not psychopathic, are the most attractive features. Women are more discerning when choosing a partner, likely because an unreliable partner would have adverse outcomes for her and her child. Sort of obvious, isn't it? Previous research has been equivocal with regards to whether women are attracted to bad boys, and the finding from this study suggests that they are not, at least in comparison to men who are less discerning. So how much of this whole, oh, women will date these awful, horrible, you know, dark traits men, and then settle for like a good guy later on. Like that's the red pill discourse, right? But it just doesn't seem to be true. I'm sure it happens, but doesn't really seem to be true. They seem to select against psychopathic traits. But it's how much of that's actually just projection from men. It's like, oh yeah, that's how they actually feel, right? Again, from an evolutionary perspective, we would expect this, as men are not traditionally the primary caregiver and the consequences are less severe in forming problematic relationships. Yeah. So basically what's saying is a man could detect really problematic traits in a woman, be like, wow, your personality is not at all alright. Like, you are doing crazy, unpredictable behavior. I'm still going to impregnate you because I don't have the burden of pregnancy and early childcare. It's your burden. And that is how men act. Good to know. It is what it is. For men, attractiveness was the most important factor in predicting dating appeal. Men viewed physically attractive women who were high in borderline personality traits to be more appealing than women who were less physically attractive and low in borderline personality traits. So they will not trade off, like, you have to be good looking, because I think fertility is so tied to physical traits, which a lot of the time are just traits of youth and health. It's basically just youth and health. And that is something that men basically will not compromise on, even if a woman has like a fantastic personality, she's too old or too ugly. It's like, nah. Yeah, so I thought, to what extent could you recommend to a woman? This really depends who you're speaking to, but to what extent could you recommend to a woman to just go online, look up the traits of BPD, and maybe do a little bit of BPD maxing? So, how would that look? Let's give some examples. Impulsivity. Let's say you're not very impulsive. You're like, oh, I have breakfast and then I do this and then I study and then I go to work, or like I go to work and I do this and I pack my lunch, and be very regular, routined. When you're interacting with a man that you're romantically interested in, you could just try at least display a little bit of impulsivity. Just at it like just like a grain of salt on top of your regular life. Um, just go somewhere randomly. Just be like, let's go somewhere. Or just go to the kitchen, be like, let's make some dessert together and just make some dessert. See, you can do this without, like, you're not actually making yourself or being BPD. You can't do that anyway. You'd have to induce it with drugs or something like that. So you're not going to do that. You're just going to act it to create more attraction in the man. So you're triggering something in his brain. He's like, oh, she's BPD. Like, he doesn't think that necessarily, doesn't necessarily know what that even is. But he's going to be like, oh, now I feel more attracted. Okay. Powerful tool. Let's see. Next thing. What could we do for the next thing? Chronic feelings of emptiness. Now, I'm not sure. How would you emulate that? Let's say you're just living your life and you're okay and everything's cool and you've got your dog and you call your mom and whatever, but you could just sit there and like stare into the distance until he says like, are you okay? And you're like, oh, what? See, some people don't need coaching for this. Some people do. And this sounds very counterintuitive, but this is like, trust me, this might work. Just try it. Maybe try it on a guy you don't really like first. Self-harm, I don't recommend. Obviously, I cannot sit here and recommend that, and I wouldn't anyway. High rejection sensitivity. Okay, now this is one of your best. This is one of your strongest, like easiest. You got to rehearse this a little bit, think it through. Because obviously most of us girls, like we're actually not that crazy and we have to, it needs like a bit of help, you know, we got to like breathe through it sort of thing. So how would you emulate high rejection sensitivity? And all I'm saying is do it once a month. Do it once every 2 months. Just do it. If you're dating a guy, just do it occasionally. Just to put him on his toes. You just don't want a guy to get comfortable and be like, oh, you know, like, oh yeah, my girlfriend, hi, like, oh yeah, we made plans and you're actually going to follow through with our plans. Like, what sounds like the right thing to do, sometimes it's not the right thing to do because you've got to keep a man on his toes. Like, he's got to, for men, like, they are much more emotionally blunt than us, I think. I'm not saying all, I'm saying generally. So what you need to do is you need to heighten his emotions. How do you heighten a man's emotions? Well, I think that's what this BPD stuff does. It's giving him like a, oh, shit, like there's potentially something crazy could happen at any moment. And then it doesn't necessarily have to happen, but you just got to give him the feeling of uncertainty at all times. Oh, she could just become extremely bored and suddenly I have to entertain her. Or, oh, she's gonna feel like she's being rejected. So like, if he's on his phone, you could just say like, you're texting that girl that we know from wherever, from work or whatever it is. Just go a little bit crazy and just throw a pillow in his face and like go a little bit nuts. But just do it like, just space it out because you become exhausted, you do that stuff too much and you don't, you know, you want to then return to your normal personality after that. But this will make him worried and fearful and thinking. And then whenever he interacts with another woman, he's going to be like, oh, if my girlfriend sees this, or if I text this woman now because of some project we're doing, oh, now my girlfriend's going to be, but that makes them in love. Like that is what for a lot of men love is. It's that like fear. I don't make the rules, don't shoot the messenger, okay? Unstable self-image. That's pretty easy, right? Especially if you're a younger woman. I think as you get older, that's for my age, that wouldn't really work. It wouldn't really make sense. Like, I am who I am. I do, you know, I'm a mom and stuff with kids. That wouldn't really work. But if you're like, you're at uni, you're in high school, like, that's a lot easier. Like, be on top of the world one day and then another time be like, oh, but I don't even know. Like, I don't know if I should do this. I'm doing a nursing degree, but now I'm really unsure. Can I really be a nurse? Like, I don't really feel like a nurse. I would look so shit in like a nursing outfit. Just shit like that. Say shit like that, and then he has to reassure you, and that's going to force him into like a paternal role. And men like um like coaching and nurturing in a way. Like there's kind of that male nurture that's more like not directed towards infants. Like women are like, oh, fully like baby infant care, we love that stuff. But men is more like, what's the word for it? See, I don't even think like that. So that's foreign to my brain because I'm a woman. I'm very into like, oh my gosh, actual babies. Um, no, it's more like that coaching, that like, oh yeah, mentorship. Force the man into a mentorship position. Not even force, it's like you encourage that in him because through the mentorship, he will start becoming invested in your future. I'll be like, oh, I really hope she does well with her exam. She was so worried about it. I'm like, really? And then he'll like text you about it. And yeah. So that kind of thing creates that bond as well. And once again, I'm kind of saying this like this is half a joke. Like this whole thing is kind of a joke, okay? But I think most women are kind of like that anyway. They don't really need me to tell them. I'm just saying it for fun. I think if you're really chill, if you're really reliable, if you're really relaxed and really stable, it sadly, and I think some really attractive women are like that, it can actually be really bad for your dating. Like it sucks, but you'll just be so boring. He'll always be eyeing, like his eyes will always be wandering to like the more crazy, like, oh, what could I experience? Like imagine, the exciting, like just emotional terrorism of a BPD girl. Like that is like the height of experience for men. Like being with a BPD girl is like nuts. Like they'll always think back to that. Nothing ever comes close because it's constantly forcing them to feel emotions. And men are like pretty dead inside. They like don't feel much. They can see like a puppy being shot and they're like, oh, that sucks. Like they're not saying all men, but there's a lot less emotional response, right? Like you show a woman something distressing, we actually become distressed. Like something emotional happens, something threatening happens, we feel really, really, really scared. Like we feel a lot of emotions and a lot of men don't. So you have to help them. You have to like make such a massive drama about everything in your life that the men are like, oh yeah, when I'm with this girl, I actually feel alive. It's like, yeah, yes, exactly right. That's the point. So we've done fear of abandonment. So it could be like, and obviously it can be just like, oh no, like don't leave me and stuff. Or like, no, I don't want you to go away for however long he's going away. Stuff like that. That's actually really easy. Emotional instability. Feel like a lot of this stuff has been emotional instability already. I mean, impulsivity is kind of a way of like switching emotions and being like, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this now. But yeah, just having not just feeling the emotion, but like displaying intense emotions about whatever it is. Display intense emotions and like be like, okay, we're doing this. This is cool. This is great. I'm having Why are we here? It's so cold. I hate it here. Like I'm freezing. That kind of stuff. Bursts of rage. Yeah, I don't know. Like for dating stage, I don't know what you'd be raged about. Like this is where that I find difficult to advise because what do you really have to be enraged about when you're dating someone, you're going somewhere, you're hanging out, you're having a meal? What's there really to be enraged about? But I guess some women might be enraged about like, oh, this food is disgusting, the waiter needs to take it back. I hate that. Like I would never act like that. I really don't like it. So that's so morally opposed to me that I feel I don't like it. But it could be like something else. It could be you're trying to organize something, you're trying to get on the phone with someone, you've got an appointment, maybe you could be enraged about that. I don't know. For me, like that probably the rage thing, I don't think it can be rage against the man. I think that is a dangerous territory. You don't know this person that well, you're dating this person. But I think actually that is something that probably a lot of men will enjoy to an extreme extent, like women having rage against them, be enraged against them. It's not personally my cup of tea. I guess you could, but I really would refrain from smacking or like using your hand back to smack. Like I would just refrain because you just never know. You just never know what the man, like, is he gonna punch you and then you're gonna like have a spinal injury or something, it's just, I don't know if it's worth it, but you could definitely get annoyed about something that he's doing. You'd be like, maybe just over text, maybe not in real life, maybe like just over like online communications or something like that. Be very annoyed. Separation anxiety. Oh, we had that one. Oh, fear of abandonment and separation anxiety to me is kind of the same thing. Paranoid thoughts. That's really easy. Paranoid thoughts. So this is advice for if you're trying to emulate a BPD personality or exaggerate a BPD personality, like if you're just not really high on any of those traits. It would be something like, oh my gosh, is that guy following us? How easy is that? Isn't that just so easy? That's so easy. Just out somewhere. It's like, oh, I swear every time we walk under that street lamp, it's flickering. But every time we walk away, it stops flickering. It's just saying dumb shit like that. Like, men absolutely love that. So I think I've just, if anyone watches this and takes this advice, we're just gonna see like a baby boom go through society because this is definitely gonna work. Um, yeah, I think especially girls, if you're raised with brothers as well, you're sort of used to like when you're like, you sort of have that bro mode. If you're raised with brothers, you kind of know how to be like just be quite calm and be quite chill and be like, yeah, this is what's happening in my life, and you know, and oh yeah, you like to play computer games, like you're totally used to it. You're like, yeah, okay, but then that's not like that can be so. Just gonna give you a scenario. Let's say you're hanging out with the guy you're dating, and he like starts playing computer games, something like that. That could be an example, but it could be something else. It could be like eating a whole bag of chips or just something where it can't be something good, but has something that's like, okay, that's not the best behavior. Or like staying up all night and then crashing out, sleeping in the morning, something like that. If you don't lose your shit a little bit, at least be like, at least a bit of silent treatment or like a bit of annoyance. I had to learn this because I grew up with brothers. Like I was very relaxed and I was very used to like male behavior. It just wasn't, I didn't bat an eye at it really. It was just very normal to me. But I learned that being relaxed, it makes the man feel as if that you're not really a woman. It makes him feel like you're a bro. And then you almost get kind of friend zoned. And that's really bizarre. It doesn't mean they're not physically attracted to you or whatever. But the whole dynamic, the whole psychological stuff, where it's like, oh, I'm in the presence of a woman, I'm going to sit up straight, I'm going to watch what I'm eating, I'm maybe not going to act, men act, and I'm meaning, when I say men, I mean all the way down to like age 15. I mean like young men, they're going to act differently when there's a woman. Oh, maybe I'm not going to swear. Like there is like that whole lingo, right? Like there's the way men talk, there's the way women talk. And you've got to almost, and I think a lot of this BPD, like I said, because it's got a lot of feminine, like really, really feminine traits in it, I think really what it is this being, is triggering the response to a female. Like it's triggering the brain saying, oh gosh, okay, I'm in presence of a female. What can I do? What can I say? I'm not saying trigger that all day long, all the time, but trigger it intermittently to not have the man forget that you're not a bro, that he can't really relax. He can't just say whatever he wants. He can't just comment on another woman's appearance. Things like that, like things that he wouldn't do around a woman, but he would do around his mates. It's really easy to fall into like a mate dynamic with men where they start saying all the kind of locker room stuff around you. And that can be great if you're legitimately friends, but yeah, preventing that will keep you in his mind. It will keep that, oh, she's my woman, she's my girl, she's my girlfriend. They'll keep that space occupied. Otherwise, that space starts to become vacant in their minds. Right, well, that's it. That's my take on BPD maxing and how it helps you in your dating life. Let's see what else we have. Polycystic ovary syndrome, says Heart and Soil, has been formally renamed polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. Now, of course, this has to be longer and more complicated. Let's see if it's community noted. No, no community notes. This seems legit. It's got a paper in the Lancet. Let's have a look. No, sorry. The Lancet. Polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. It's going to take me like a year to learn that term. The new name for polycystic ovary syndrome, a multi-step global consensus process. Well, I'm really happy that they got together and actually discussed this and came to terms with this, because obviously the information's been going around for a while. Now, I'm saying all this, I do not have, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it by the old name or the new, I don't have it. I'm interested. It's just something that I read out of interest. Like, it sounds like I'm like specifically researching PMOS. PMOS. No, but so yeah, there has been information going around that's to do with metabolic disorder. Like, it's to do with, if you want to put it really, really bluntly, being fat and like all your hormones being disrupted because you're fat. Basically, that's my understanding of it. Let's have a look. The change was driven by input from more than 50 leading academic organizations, along with feedback from more than 14,000 women with the condition. A new paper in the Lancet details the change. This is a huge win, as for decades the name polycystic ovary syndrome has been misleading. The cysts on the ovaries have always been a downstream symptom and not some spontaneous event. The new name finally puts the words endocrine, so obviously that has to do with hormones in the body, and metabolic obviously has to do with your metabolism, right? Where they belong front and center. PMOS encompasses multiple interacting endocrine abnormalities rather than an isolated ovarian disorder. And that is so true, because PCOS, like polycystic ovaries, like you think, oh, something's wrong with the ovaries and that's causing everything else. And that's actually what people will sort of say when you talk about it. Like, oh yeah, there's something, I've got PCOS, and therefore I've got this, therefore I'm fat, or therefore it's this or that. But apparently it is reversed. It's the other way around. No offense to anyone who has this. I don't really know. I'm just reading it, okay? From the paper, insulin resistance and compensatory hyperinsulinemia are present in 85% of affected individuals. Like, that's extreme. And 75% of lean women with PMOS. So even though they're lean, you can be lean and still have insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. Amplifying androgen secretion. Okay. Amplifies androgen secretion and disrupting steroid. Oh my goodness, these words. Steroidogenesis. What is it today? Even in women at a healthy weight, the metabolic dysfunction is present in 3 out of 4 cases. It makes you wonder if they just can't detect it in the last ones, or maybe they had metabolic dysfunction and they fixed it already. Like, but the ovarian problems persist. Like, maybe, I don't know. PMOS is a metabolic problem expressing itself reproductively. So basically, you can just sit. This sounds so horrible, but I'm just being real. You can just eat donuts until you become infertile. Like, that's nuts. You can obviously starve yourself until you become infertile. Like, pretty soon your periods won't come. I don't know about ovulation, but like, you just can't build up like a uterine lining. Your body will just shut it down. But you can also eat yourself to the point of being infertile. Not good. Not good. I don't know what percentage of people actually affects though. So I can't make any comments about like, oh, what percentage of fertility decline is due to this, but I'm sure it's not like that negligible either. Let's see what's here. Psychobilum says, people find the humor made by men funnier. Blind breakers who don't know the gender of the person producing the joke, I guess. This also supports the hypothesis that men develop a sense of humor to impress women. Okay. It sounds like a really good hypothesis. Like, a boy's like 5, 6, 7 years old. He's like, I want that girl to like me, so I'm gonna like start saying something funny, and then you like practice, right? And you practice and practice. I'm sure that, I'm not saying it's not part of it. I'm not saying it's 0% part of it. But the way to understand human like humor and laughter and like the whole thing, it's a form of aggression. And aggression is brought about by testosterone, essentially. It doesn't mean that women can't be funny, but that's like saying that's like anything. Like women can still have a sex drive. Their testosterone's very low. It still can trigger those behaviors. But if it's an aggression linked behavior, it's going to be more so in men. Okay. So you might say, how is telling jokes a form of aggression? And of course, this is not, oh, I should really show you a study. Sorry. Here's a study. Well, here are these graphs anyway. How funny you find laughter, and then there's lots and lots of different studies. Displaying effect sizes with 95% confidence intervals and relative weights, as well as combined effect. I really hope this is correct. I cannot even comment on this. I have no idea. There are too many numbers in here, and I'm not spending all night reading them. Humor creation task. Number of responses per task. Anyway, at this point, I'm just trusting the conclusion, and I can't say too much. But yeah, a lot of the time, humor is like saying something that no one else will say, or like pushing the envelope a little bit. So it is always something that is the opposite of agreeableness. Like you can't be agreeable. You have to be very disagreeable to be funny, because you're basically, if you're agreeable, you're like, oh no, I'd never point that out. But then if you're disagreeable, you're like, you know, make a joke about fat people, make a joke about race, or whatever it is. It's usually something that points out a reality that other people are not willing to say. And if you do that, you just have to be disagreeable, basically, and maybe smart as well. Disagreeable and smart. Then you're funny. That's it. That's why humor. And remember with the thing that people are attracted to, and it's like funny was up there all the time. Like it was in the top 3. Basically, people use that to measure your intelligence and your disagreeableness. That's my take anyway. Christianity on the spectrum says the autistic mind is so beautiful. So Ayala, I'm going to say this wrong. Ayala is this, she's a sex researcher. She researches stuff about sex. And it's really interesting. And I swear I don't actually see her post on X. I think it's like algorithmically suppressed. So you would have to go and like find her account and follow her and stuff. The greatest test of would you have been chill with owning slaves if you'd been born into a slave owning family is whether or not you're a vegetarian today. It's not a perfect test of, but having to significantly inconvenience yourself, often with social stigma in some communities, to reduce suffering of a class of consciousness widely considered to be inferior is a decent proxy. And she says, I'm not a vegetarian, and I think this choice increases the odds that I would have been okay with owning slaves if I were born into the right culture. It's an interesting thought experiment, and that's obviously all this is. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. It's just being able to like think of something and say it and like not worry. And she, like, Ella's ultra smart, and she's obviously disagreeable as well, enough so that she goes out there and does insane things that most people would be utterly mortified and ashamed to ever talk about. Like hypothesizing that you would be okay with owning slaves. 10 Children and Happy, says Jared Taylor, a very favourable article about the French woman, 43 years old, who built her family the way others build careers. It appeared last month in the popular French weekly Journal du Dimanche, founded in 1948. She and her husband married at ages 17 and 21. Well, that helps. You get married at 17, that helps having a lot of babies. Like, you cannot really easily catch up with that. You get married later, I'm just going to say. Here she is. She looks absolutely exhausted. I'm just being real. Good for her. Like, what an absolute champion and trooper. She looks like she needs to like sleep just for a year straight. Like, just leave her alone, okay? Mommy, shut up. Leave her alone. She's had enough mummies. She's had enough mummies for like 50 years. I just want to give this woman like a rest. Like a break. Oh my goodness. Obviously, I'm not going to read the French. And here are all the children. That's nuts. So many of them are like huge. They're like fully grown. And there's not, so she's 43, but there's no like babies. Like the littlest looks about 3. So she must have had a last about 40. Which I think is really reasonable as well. Like I think pushing fertility way into your 40s. I mean, you definitely can, you definitely can, of course. Like it's just so tough. It's so hard. I'm not saying that more, I'm not really saying this as a moral or a prescriptive thing. I'm more saying it as a like realistically speaking, it's very, very hard for your body. So she looks like she's had one at about 40, and then the next one up looks about 5. So maybe she had one at about 38, and then so on and so forth. Looks like about every 2 years. Which if you go any closer, I'm just being real, like, yeah, if you go any closer than that, you really, 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 really need to watch it. And no one really wants to talk about this. Is one of those things that's like very taboo. Like lots of things, a lot of things we talk about on the show are very taboo. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, spacing kids like extremely closely, like your rate of miscarriage is higher. Like your uterine lining is not going to be really that thick because you're still breastfeeding. Your body's just starting to hormonally recover. You're instantly getting pregnant. You can, not necessarily saying you will, but you can deal with like reduced IQ and stuff like that. You need to be waiting a few cycles. Make sure you're getting proper periods, like proper full-on periods before you try to conceive. And if possible, be on like a preconception diet. So that could mean like, I'm not saying what age to space necessarily, it depends on your body a bit. Like if you're not breastfeeding, you will get there a lot more quickly, but you still, whether you're breastfeeding or not, whether you're fat or thin, whether you're whatever, you still have a baby on you. You still have a baby, even if you're not breastfeeding. Breastfeeding does make a big difference, I think, in terms of how it's drawing nutrients out of your body and things like that. And you've got a baby more clinging to you, but you still have a baby anyway. Like you want to be pregnant and carrying a toddler, it's very, very hard. So yeah, just in terms of fertility, like, because a lot of people do want a lot of children, and I know some people totally don't, and this is not for you, but if you do want a lot of children, like, and obviously that's not something a lot of people can influence, but starting younger and take your time. Start younger and then you have the time to take breathers. Otherwise you're like, so many women, they're like, I want more, but they're like 36, 37, and they feel like they're really pushing it, or they feel like they're starting in their, some people, it's just, it's so different. It's so different. A lot of the women I see around like rural Australia, they're usually starting around 30, which is biologically quite late to start, but obviously in our current cultural context, that is pretty good. And the average, I was reading it the other day, if you exclude like Australian cities, the birth rates are much higher. So if you're in a rural place, like a country town, you will sort of feel, it feels like birth rates are much higher than what they actually are. Like Australian birth rates, I think is like 1.3 or something like that. But in rural places, it feels much higher. But then there are still plenty of men who just, they move to certain towns for work, and they're not even married, they have no children. So it does pull the actual rate back down, but like the felt rate, if you just go out and you just meet people, would definitely be like 2.5. I'm just saying, like, from just knowing lots of families, it would definitely be 2.5. Plenty of families with 3 and some with 4. Occasionally 5 or 6, but like it is still so rare. And that's the crazy thing. Like 5 or 6 kids shouldn't be that rare. I'm not saying it should be every second person, but it should be maybe 1 in 10 women, maybe 1 in 20, but it ends up being like 1 in 40 women or 1 in 50 or less. Like it's so rare to have more than 4. And I don't think that's because people don't want them. I think it's because people leave it too late, and it's financial reasons. So, you know, one of them you can address by starting younger. The whole economy, you obviously can't do much about. That's more like a societal level of addressing things. Oh, right, that the Hitch Slap says, the feminine tendency for empathy is great for nurturing children, but terrible for discipline and justice. This is where like this kind of, it sounds like anti-feminist rhetoric, but it really isn't, or maybe it is, whatever. I will agree with it. What's true is true, right? Mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent, and I love that. That is so well said, that's so well said and so well stated. New York City woman declined to press charges against subway shover, so obviously someone who shoves someone, because she didn't want to put another black man in jail. Weeks later, the alleged killer, he allegedly killed retired teacher, 76 years old, at station. And there was a video of it, which you don't want to see, to be quite honest. It's awful, you know? He's just walking around like there's no emotions in it. Like there's nothing wrong to him. He just walks around, he sees an old man, full on shop, he just flies down the stairs. It's horrible. Like some people, there's something in their mind. You can try to have empathy, but like at some point you've got to admit you can't understand it. What is going through someone's mind? It's like, oh yeah, I've had so much injustice done to me. I'm such a victim. I'm just gonna like hurt random people and like what? We all get being angry, but like there are people that's what they're thinking. Like they're ruminating. There's probably like a form of schizophrenia where they're like ruminating and they're angry. I'm not saying all their grievances are made up. If this guy explained himself, it might make some degree of sense. But targeting it like that, like so random and just going for death, is just nuts. When people act like that, it doesn't matter if they're insane. Like here's the thing. People having the excuse of mental illness and it like gets treated, or like low IQ, whatever. How is that should not be an excuse. We should not be thinking, oh, you're like 120 IQ and you've plotted this murder and you've done all these like, you've done like 20 steps, you've hidden the murder weapon, and then you've driven to a forest and you've buried that murder victim in a bag, whatever. Just because you're very smart and you can plan something and do like 20 steps doesn't make the crime any better or worse than someone who is low IQ and is retarded and like just hits someone with a car. It's like, or like shoves them downstairs because they're schizophrenic or something. Like the outcome and the harm to society is the same, right? Assuming that that you're taking someone's life, that sort of thing. But yet we punish the intelligent person so much worse than the person who's just doing random violence. Well, it depends. Like the intelligent person might have this particular grievance. I'm just trying to make a point here. I'm not saying don't punish murderers and all that stuff. I'm saying the motivation, the cause behind it should not be considered so importantly. It's not. Because are they going to go out and do the same crime again? Is it going to harm society? That should be the main thing that affects the sentencing. Like if I go, and I always say this, like if I go out and I'm like, I'm going to inject drugs or like take mushrooms, let's say, and then I, do something horrific, like murder children or something. Well, should I be excused because I was in an altered mental state and like I completely didn't want to do that, but it just happened because I became schizophrenic in that mental state? Well, but I went and induced that. Like I'm fine, I would never do that, but I'm gone and induced a mental state in myself. So why would I be punished less for that crime? Like I'm well aware that if I go and become a drug addict, I'm probably going to do horrible things because I'm going to become whatever, either schizophrenic from the drugs or go nuts or lose IQ points or become desperate for the drug, whatever. I know not to do that, but yet we kind of just let people get away with this. It's so frustrating. All right. We had the woman with 10 children. We had the feminine empathy. Okay. This is funny, but I'm still going to refute it. Like, I'm not saying it's true, but it's funny. It's just like a picture of a woman. It's like a meme of a woman going, I fucking hate you and I hope you die. And it's like the man's like a toddler playing with toys with like a umbrella hat on going, I like girls. And it's meant to represent this graph of, do you have positive or negative feelings, view of the opposite gender? And women under 25 have 27% negative views of men Women under 30. So it's not even showing all of it. I think it's more about this meme than anything. But anyway, strikingly, young women are a lot more negative about the opposite gender than young men. That's the point. Under 30-year-old women are 3 times as likely to hold negative view of young men than the other way around. And young men under 30, according to this study, and they're asking, do you have a positive or negative view of the opposite gender? And 72% of them say a positive view. But here's the thing, okay? And that's why this is funny, because it's reflecting the graph. But here's the thing. How you ask a young man, do you have a positive view of the opposite gender? What are they going to think? Where do you think their minds are when they're saying, yeah, I have a positive view of them? If you take out just sexual attraction and sexual interest, that would probably be like a 10%, maybe 20. I reckon most of that 72% would be gone if you took out any, like, you are not being clear enough here that it's outside of sexual attraction. Like, this is obviously, women don't walk around feeling general sexual attraction towards men. Women will have like one specific crush, or maybe not, or maybe they've had a grievance about one specific guy. But they don't walk around generally horny and attracted to men in a general way. This is so rare. So I think for a woman, the way we would interpret that is more like, do you feel safe around men? Do you feel like do you feel like society, like men are going in a good way in the society? Do you feel like, it's your values are represented in men and stuff like that, and they're respectful? Well, no. I'm surprised so many of them even say yes, And also, how many men under 30 have been groped by a woman? Maybe 5%, maybe 10%. Like, it's going to be very small. For a woman, it's going to be like 90%. How many men under 30 have been raped by a woman? It's going to be like 1%, 0.5%. How many women under 25 have been raped by women? Well, all rape that ever happens, the average age is 15 years old. So most rape that ever happens is already, women under 30. Women under 30, all rape that ever happens basically is already happened to them for the most part. So they already carry those experiences. So like I've said, I'm surprised that women under 30, 50% of them still have a positive view of man. It's actually surprising the other way around, but that's the way I interpret that. Because I think that the men are mainly interpreting, do you have a positive view towards the opposite gender as are you attracted to them sexually? Because I can tell you, like I said earlier, you walk around society, you don't look sexually attractive, you get, as a woman, women are like neutral. Women are pretty much the same. It doesn't really matter that much. Maybe a little bit less friendly if you're looking ugly on that day. But men, it's like contempt. It's contempt. It's not just like, oh, hey. It's like, not good. Not good at all. All right. Unusual. In a Finnish forest, a man set up a camera and filmed 2 adult cranes enthusiastically flapping their wings to encourage a little one to take its first flight. This is so cute. This is like the white pill. Today's white pill. An adorable moment of wildlife and family learning. Aww. Is there any sound? I don't think there's any sound. There's like the crane chick, and they're like, this is how you fly, see? And it's trying to do it. Oh, so cute. Like, birds are seriously the best creatures. Like, the older I get, the more I like birds. They really don't have a nasty bone in their body, apart from like vultures. Or like birds of prey, I guess. But like most birds. Birds of prey, but like if they eat worms is okay. Like kookaburras are okay. Birds of prey that eat like rodents? No. No. No more cute. But they're just so sweet. They're so social. They raise their children so well. They do so much good work. Oh, this is a tough one. I don't think I'll cover this. Sometimes I just put links in there and I'm like, I don't think I can cover that. I don't think I can do it. I guess too negative. Ah, mitochondrial Eve. I love that. What a clever name to put. No one has been more maligned in recent history than the teen mum. From 1947 to 1972, half of all married women got married at age 20 or younger. That's nuts. But yes, and the graph, wait a second. Typical marriage age. Okay, let's look at the graph because we've looked at this before. And anyway, people always like to be like, oh, see, like people getting married way, way, way later. It's like, yes, it's true, but also if you're starting at like the 1960s or 1950s, whatever, like it was an age where people got married much younger than even was historically the norm before then. So look here, 1900, average age of men to marry 26. Good age to marry for men, I would say. And it gets younger and younger and younger. And I think, I mean, obviously that the women getting younger and younger and the men also, I guess it's probably a big part of this whole baby boom and like what causes the baby boom as well. But I don't think we need to be in baby boom situations at all times. We probably need it now, but I'm not convinced that the average marriage age that's here in this dip. You can't see the mouse today, can you? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I don't think it's necessarily ideal to go that young, to be honest. But yeah, average age of marriage for a woman was always around 22. I have heard people say that historically it was around 22, 23 years old, that sort of age. So 1900, we have 22 years old. I'll zoom up so you can see. And it goes down and down to around 20. That's nuts. And now obviously men, the average age is just above 30 and women just above 28. And it's just gone up so steeply. It's nuts. It's really nuts. And of course, that in itself just delayed childbearing. And like, obviously, marriage doesn't cause the childbearing. Like, people do have children before marriage stuff, but it's just indicative of like when people are actually starting serious relationships, and it's just sort of indicative of when people are having children. Basically, it's gonna probably plot very closely to that line when people start trying for their first child, that sort of thing. And it is just that factor alone, even if you leave people at the same number of children, is gonna, you know, basically it's gonna crash society in terms of like, we're just not having children soon enough. The generational length gets too long and the population can't sustain just even because of that one factor. You can't really make up for it by having more and more later because biology just doesn't allow it right now. And just doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. But yeah, I would love to know the maths on that. Maybe we can get someone to do it. Maybe I can do it. Maybe AI can do it. Like, let's say every woman has 2 children in her 30s, which is pretty realistic. That's pretty much kind of what's happening now. Like, obviously the average being like 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, whatever you live. But then women who do have children have more children, right? It's people who don't have children at all that drag the average down. But let's say you add 2 more kids in people's 40s, like in women's 40s. Let's say you put one at 45 and one at 49, and you say, well, because of reproductive technological advances, we can do that now, and then see what the population impact will be. But it's going to be a lot less of a population impact than having 2 kids in your 20s in addition to the 2 kids in your 30s. That's sort of the issue. It's just so easy to outcompete a population that does that. Chris Brunette says, Chinese professor sues Southern Methodist University over discrimination by Indian professors. No, this is getting wild. It's sort of like the whole white fatigue thing. Like, we're kind of fatigued. Like, we've been running the show for a long time. I don't mean the Martha Wolf show. I mean, like, the show of the world sort of thing. Someone else is stepping up and fighting for the right thing. And, you know, I do see this over and over again. I do see East Asians standing up for the right thing over and over again. I'm not saying in every department, everything, in exactly the way that I would prefer it, but generally speaking, yes. And it's really good. It's really nice to see. The accounting department granted tenure to 100% of Indian origin candidates while denying tenure to 100% of non-Indian candidates. So it's like you can't really become more blatantly ethnocentric in your hiring practices than Indians these days. So Chinese American professor sues Southern Massachusetts, blah blah, and it goes on and on. You can read more about it. I read it, and yeah, it's just too much detail. But they, knowing full well, like his name is like very Chinese sounding, and he obviously looks extremely East Asian. He went in for an in-person interview, and he has an Asian sounding name. They still classified him as white in order to like put him away from the hiring, like something to do with the hiring process. If you classify someone as white, they're like less likely to get hired. I mean, that should not be the case. Obviously, that's what I would protest against in the first place. But yeah, it's like, what I would say is, look, it's really difficult to be a minority and not be affected by the discrimination against whites in some way, shape, or form at some point anyway. Like, you basically have to like come into a Western country like Australia and become like, be like, okay, how the heck do we become the dominant ethnicity? You think you're gonna achieve that? Obviously, some group will achieve that, but probably, but it's gonna be like a brutal and bloody way to the top. I mean, and everyone else who's not, they're just gonna change all the discriminatory patterns that are used against white people are just gonna be applied to the. It's already happening to Asians. It's already happening to Asians. There you go. It's happening to Asians now too. And I'm not saying we're all the same. I'm not saying don't care about white people. I'm not saying I don't care about white people. I'm not saying that at all. I care a lot. But it's like meritocracy benefits kind of everyone who's in the system at the end of the day. Even if like me, I wouldn't qualify to be like a physicist, to be like a professor of some crazy subject. I wouldn't qualify. I shouldn't qualify, right? Even if I'm a black disabled female and I apply, I shouldn't qualify. Shouldn't, because I'm gonna wreck that whole department because for my incompetence, right? Now, I personally wouldn't even apply because that's like my personal ethics. I wouldn't do something that I feel like I can't do. I wouldn't go and do like open heart surgery on someone knowing full well I'm gonna kill them. That's my personal ethics, but a lot of people don't have those ethics. They're full well willing to go into a profession, willing to go put on their rubber gloves and go into surgery or put on their glasses and open their laptop and stand in front of a bunch of students, whatever it is they're doing, knowing full well they were not the best person for that job. They were not the best candidate for that job. And someone who's much more intelligent and much more deserving and much more hardworking than them is deserving of that position. And there are people out there just, they live their life like that. And what does it do? What kind of moral compass do you have to have inside of you to be like that in the first place? I find it, I can't comprehend it. But also, what does that do? Does that eat at you over time? Like, how can you ever develop good character while being in a like stolen spot, you know? You've stolen something, you've taken something away, you've deprived someone else of a good career, of a good position that they would have had been more suitable for, and then they could have had a family, they could have had children, they could have had a good life, and you've deprived them. And hurting everyone around you in the process. How do you live with yourself? Does it must eat at people? It must make people, even if you have a low character, if you which obviously they do, if they're doing that, it must eat at you to some extent. There must be some moral qualms and some effect that has on you. And I wonder if that creates like a fear, like, oh, if the system ever gets overturned, I'm screwed. Like, I'm going to be back to doing what I should be doing with my life, which is probably not succeeding very much. If you're like a DEI hire, that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's the same with these. I was reading the whole thing about this medical school. This guy came out of a medical school. It's all in the US. And he talking about how extreme the DEI practices are. It's so extreme. They were like whole lectures just about these topics. The exclusion of white men from these professions. It's almost unimaginable. You read it and you think you almost can't believe it. You think it can't be true. But basically, if you're a white male and you're trying to get into some sort of academia, medicine, these sort of things, from day one, they are putting stumbling blocks in front of your feet and you have to like just fight, like submit to these people, but also fight them at the same time. It's like you're jumping through hoops all the time. How demoralizing is it? And I think a lot of people, some people try, and some people legitimately mentally subjugate themselves to that point where they can go through and smile and do that. And that's what this guy did. He did come out eventually and write about it and complain about it, but he was fully involved. He went on like a DEI board and he won these like DEI prizes even. But yeah, like people subjugate themselves and start to actually truly believe what they have to read and hear, and they start to actually preach it because they actually start to believe it, which is nuts. All right, let's see what else we've got, and then we're going to wrap it up really soon. But yeah, I think advocating for meritocracy, like, very important. And it's the smartest people who would want to do that, and hopefully they will have success as well, you know, because they're smart. I mean, it's just crazy. You're just going to destroy society. You're going to put people who can't do certain jobs in the jobs. It's just, you're going to wreck one thing after another. Anish Munka says you only get 2 sets of teeth. They're talking about like your baby teeth and then your adult teeth come in. Then a protein called USAG1 tells your jaw to stop making more. A Japanese team has been testing a drug to block it since October 2024. Phase 1 finished without serious side effects in February. 30 men signed up to this trial, ages 30 to 64, each missing at least one back tooth. They each got a single IV dose of TRG-035, an antibody made by Turingham Biopharma, a Kyoto University spin-off. The drug shuts off USAG1, so the protein that stops you from making more teeth. With that protein out of the way, your jaw's growth signals start telling sleeping tooth cells to wake up. It started with mice, so they did it with mice. And then they did it in dogs. The next phase targets children aged 2 to 6 born missing 6 or more permanent teeth. That's a condition that affects 1 in 10,000 people. 1 in 1,000 people, sorry. Japan's Ministry of Health has already given TRG-035 to fast-track status, a fast-track status reserved for rare conditions. What's really important, because having bad teeth is horrible and you're going to suffer it for the rest of your life and not be able to chew properly and not look good. That's amazing. How cool is that? Riga! I can't even look at the pictures. That's... Oh gosh, that's like grossing me out a lot. Okay. That's really gross. But so cool. Imagine that. Just regrow more teeth. Like any age, I guess. That's amazing. This was great. Rob Henderson says, one of the ways smart righties, as in like right-wing people, signal their intelligence is knowingly alluding to the findings on group differences, indulging in jokes, trafficking in casual bigotry, but still treating each person they meet as an individual rather than the statistical average of their group. And I think that is so true. That is so what happens. Like, smart people generally are kinder and nicer to other people, and they're more open and they will ask more questions. It's really a striking difference if you've just been around a variety of people, which I certainly have. Like, I still remember making friends with someone smart and they ask you a question and you're like, I've never been asked that question before. That's nuts. Like, you're actually interested in like this random detail I would never even have thought of about my life or my preferences or my opinion on something. And that's so different. Less intelligent people. So what I think it is, and I was talking to a friend about that today actually. And I said to her, I was like, because we're talking about this sort of topic, I was like, people become unhappy when their brain is strained. So if I just come up to you and I'm like, oh, can you solve this like equation for me? People get stressed by that. Like, oh, like, like there's social stress, you're looking after your kid, you've got other things going on, there's maybe noise, like there's enough stuff for your brain to process. And the more your brain has to process, the less happy you become. Like for some people, I think it's different things for different things for different people, depending on how your brain processes things. Like for me, it's going to be like noise and overstimulation. Obviously, some people can't handle like certain textures or pressures or whatever. And that can be really overwhelming for people because basically your brain's over processing way too much stuff. But for a lot of people, it's just going to be like information that they haven't heard before. They don't know how to respond to it. Now they have to think of something to say, or being asked a question they weren't expecting. And that's why small talk is so important, because you really can do it to almost anyone. And most people have some degree of response to it. How are you going? Oh, isn't the weather this way or that way? Blah, blah. And people hate it. But it's actually a really important way of making everyone feel at ease. But I think what people do, not because they're like knowingly like calculating for this, but just because social experience and things like that and social norms, is we sort of dumb down conversation a lot when we meet someone, and we slowly increase the level of complexity or information in the conversation. Like, I'm not saying I personally do this, although I do this as well. I'm saying people generally. And the increase is very slow and very incremental of increasing like the interest of the conversation. Like, it's going to start on small talk. That's what small talk is, right? It's this really basic, boring stuff. Back and forth, chit and chat, maybe a little joke. See if you get the joke. Okay. Someone makes a joke, you laugh. Maybe you push the joke back. Maybe you go back and forth. And that's how you suss someone out mentally. You're sussing out what are you like mentally, right? But if you just throw information at someone and you're like, oh, it's this thing I was wondering. Or I have this problem like I'm trying to fix right now. Or I'm painting my house. Have you ever done that? Like, what kind of paint would you recommend? You watch something even basic. It's not even like intellectual stuff. It's just like life stuff. It's going to overwhelm people. It overwhelms people because it makes them do mental processing they weren't expecting. They're basically just going off like learnt, pre-rehearsed small talk, right? That puts people at ease. And it is a really difficult thing. And obviously everyone has a different philosophy, a different approach of transitioning from small talk to actual conversations. And I find that with a lot of people, you can never do it. You can only ever stay in small talk. You try to come out of that. Either you're both just not interested because you're just not finding any interest with each other, or it just becomes really awkward or really uncomfortable. But yeah, I just wish people would do it more. I wish people would try to like do non-small talk conversation like more quickly. Some people do, but it's rare that they will like initiate it like abruptly just ask a random question or something like that. But it does happen, and that's nice, isn't it? All right. Sorry, my eyes. Oh, this is such a good graph. My gosh, for this graph, because it's this whole, I think it's OkCupid or one of these dating apps did a survey, or did a survey, or maybe they did a review of people's preferences and people's dating behavior, and it was like, oh, like women like men, are 2 years older than them or whatever, and it broadly kind of tracks as they age, and only as women are over like 40 or over 50, like they're well out of a reproductive age, they start preferring men a little bit younger than them, just because men become less attractive with age as well, right? So a 55-year-old woman might have a preference for 50-year-old men. That's sort of the average here. But then that same data will say, well, male preference is always 21. Okay, and like it barely changes at all. So like no matter how old they get. And that's been used by like the red pill community as like a slam dunk, like, oh yeah, see, men age really well and women age really horribly. Like no one wants a girl who's older than like 23. But now we have a graph of male age preference for a wife. Male age preferences for a wife track his own age across the lifespan, not a fixed younger target. And also, so the problem with to wrap this up, the problem with the OkCupid or whatever it was data is that the cutoff was like 20 or 21. That was the cutoff. So it's not really revealing anything because real preferences probably go younger and they probably have like a bell curve. You don't know. You wouldn't really know. Because what are you going to click if the limit is 21? What are you going to click on? You're going to click on 21. So that's why it looks like that. It's not a really representation. And besides, a lot of people use these apps for like hookups. It's not for who you're going to marry. It's for like sexual interest, right? Under 32 years old, his ideal range extends a couple years above his own age. That's nuts. Past 32, the ideal shifts to his own age or younger. His acceptable range widens further younger as he ages. Even at 45, women in their mid-20s remain in his acceptable range. The all men want a 20-year-old claim may be true for casual preferences, but not what most men look for in a wife. And it makes sense. Like, do you want a wife who's like 15, 20 years younger than you and she's going to outlive you like for ages? I don't know. I just don't think most people want that. You don't relate on anything. You can't like share things with each other and like, no. There's the graph. The dark blue is the ideal range. And then the age of the man is the dotted line, which runs right through. You can't see my cursor, which sucks. Runs right through the middle of the blue and then sort of sits at the top of the blue. Yeah. Isn't that neat? Because that's what I always thought about. I was like, Stardust it's not very good. Like, it's not really representing anything of value. Richard Hanania says the best argument that society can't handle race realism is the behavior of race realists themselves. Obviously, this is like more of a. I'm not trying to like I would push back against Richard Hanania, right? But and then there's a quote, and I don't know who's quoting. The quote says, "When I say I've heard, I'm not just talking about stuff I've read on the internet. I'm talking about what IQ realists have told me to my face. In my experience, if a stranger brings up low IQ in Africa, there's about a 50-50 chance he casually transitions to forced sterilizations or mass murder of hundreds of millions of humans, being as an intriguing response." So I'm not saying that I experience this or this is not from me. I'm reading someone's account. When they meet IQ realists, so people who understand like IQ and IQ tests and like differences, group differences in IQ and things like that, that quite often they will be like semi-genocidal, like, or half the time they'll be like, so I can't say that my experience is like that, but like my experience of meeting people like that is also really limited, right? You can protest that they're just trolling, but these folks seem frighteningly sincere to me. There definitely are like full-blown eugenicists out there who just want certain phenotypes and certain genes to be completely eliminated. Like that is definitely a thing out there, and it's really important that sorry, I'm trying to pick my words here. It's really important that there is like many different alternative viewpoints. Like just knowing that one reality about life shouldn't dictate everything else that you think and be so associated. Like that association is probably not good. Not good optics to just have this sort of hate and aggression linked in with that. It's just an objective, like cold fact about the world. And you could be on either side of that. You can be in either population and still acknowledge, at least ideally, you should be able to acknowledge still the truth about population differences and things like that and still have just I think just the openness for diversity of human beings and humankind. I think this is just such a rare, it sucks that it's such a rare attitude to actually see among people just generally, and I'm not even talking about IQ realists or anything like that. I'm not even talking about like the nerdy data people, but just people just generally seem so annoyed that anyone who's different to them exists. And it's like, I get that you don't like this person because they have a different parenting style, or they're really loud, or they're really introverted. Like, you don't like their personality, you don't like their approach to life. But you've got to be a little bit like, hey, maybe my phenotype is not adaptive. Maybe in 100 years, my phenotype is not adaptive. it's the diversity of humankind that allows some groups to flourish and some collapse. It's just, and some get defeated and some survive and so forth. You've got to have that diversity. That's part of the resilience, right? I don't mean like when the left says like, oh, diversity is our strength, they always mean diversity in one place, like one office that has diverse, like everyone's doing the same kind of stuff, but everyone's got a different racial background. Oh, now it's better. Well, that's just so silly, and I think that's why people turn against it. But there is actually a deeper truth that is true within it, and that's not me saying like, oh, I have a leftist view, but it's me saying across territories, across the planet, like across different climates and habitats and so forth, having a diversity of adaptations, and that's going to include obviously external things, but also mental things, is going to be really advantageous. Because, hey, if something's really not advantageous, it's going to go away anyway. Don't worry about it too much. Like, oh, that group sucks. I really don't like their way they do something. Well, if it's really a bad trait, it's probably going to be selected against anyway. So just relax a little bit. Just relax a little bit. So I'm going to keep quoting this excerpt of the article. Don't such policies flow logically from IQ realism? No way. If someone says, I'm more intelligent than other people, so it's acceptable for me to murder them, the sensible response isn't intelligence is a myth. The sensible response is, are you mad? That doesn't justify murder. Advocating brutality in the name of your superior intellect is the mark of a supervillain, not a logician. So yeah, a lot of people are just angry psychopaths. Is what it is. But yeah, like the whole thing with IQ, you could talk about like any trait in regards to this sort of thing, like the kind of like inter-group hate. But when it comes to IQ, it I guess triggers people a lot. Like even just the conversation around IQ triggers people a lot. I would say, maintaining a large brain is very expensive, and that's something you always got to remember. Like basically, you want to have the smallest brain possible. Like why do you need cognition? Like why do you need to be thinking, ruminating on stuff constantly? Have the smallest brain possible. And hey, there are so many people out there who have mastered that rule, like that rule of biology. They have like followed it to its natural conclusions. Like whatever environment you're in, what's the toolkit you need to be the best person in that environment? And it might be quite a small toolkit. And then what's the smallest body you can maintain? So your brain can be a little bit smaller if your body's a little bit smaller, because you control, like elephants' brains are massive. They're not like smarter than us, right? Because they have more body to literally control the movements of and stuff like that and the responses of. So keep your body small, keep your brain as small as possible, and there'll be less crazy debates and intellectual conversations that are going to disrupt society anyway. So isn't that great? So there are people like that. And the idea that it's all bad is like, yeah. The high IQ has to have fruits. You can't just be high IQ and be like, oh, well, I'm higher value because I'm higher IQ, and therefore, bam, my existence is justified. Like, the high IQ has to produce something. Like, it has to produce the calories to sustain itself. Is the high IQ helping you, like, have better farming techniques? Well, historically, yes, right? Is the high IQ helping you like maintain more hygiene and look after your babies better, so like you have less infant mortality, you have less disease? Like, yeah, like that's what it's supposed to do, right? It's supposed to help you with survival. Otherwise, it's not like good in itself. High IQ is not good in itself. It's a means to an end. And at the end of the day, in a Darwinistic sense, if you want to talk about what's actually going to work and what's going to survive, it's does it lead you to have more surviving offspring to have a high IQ? And if the answer is no, your IQ is going to drop, which is pretty much what we're seeing these days. It's hard to say, oh, high IQ is like the best trait ever in every person when IQs are dropping and like it doesn't seem to be rewarded in our societies. Just to be clear, banning SSRIs is an extremely bad idea, says Cremieux. SSRIs, so the US Health Department officials last week explored whether they could ban certain drugs in a widely prescribed class of antidepressants as Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. prepared to roll out a plan to reduce their use. And then some people are saying this is great, some people are saying this is terrible. SSRIs, Camus argues, have a sort of hate them online, but the NNTs are still very low. These drugs save a lot of lives, and pulling them is a horrible idea that will result in immediate death with little upside. Yeah, so, there's definitely arguments to be made here or there. I don't know. A lot of people are on these things. A lot of women are on these things, meant to be about, like, women as well. And so I think there's this general, like, misogyny where it's like, oh, well, yeah, these women are all on these drugs. They should be offered, I don't know. It's my sort of philosophy that you should be able to, like, raw dog life. You should be able to just stare into the reality of what life is and be okay. And I know it can be very hard, but what's upsetting people? I mean, life's always been hard. I'm not saying I don't feel for people. I really, really do. But is it taking an SSRI? Like, okay, your life is so miserable, you feel like you're on the verge of screaming, self-harming, and killing yourself. Your life is so bad, your body is screaming to get out of it like an animal in a cage. And you take the SSRI and you're like, okay, oh, well, now I'm comfortable. Oh, now I can live my life. Oh, now I can get on with studying something that I know is useless. I know is useless for the world. I don't know. Maybe that's why you're depressed. I'm just saying maybe. I'm not saying I know that, but for some people, it might be maybe you're not doing anything worthwhile in life. Maybe your life doesn't really have much purpose. Maybe you're wasting your 20s. Maybe you're wasting your 30s. Maybe you're in your 40s, but you've made really bad life decisions, so now you're depressed, but can you do better? Like, where's the sort of aspiration of, I want to live my life so even the suffering is worthwhile for me? That would be my ideal. Is that feel it, feel the suffering, do the dishes all day long, like do the horrible jobs and stuff that needs to be done, like feel the pain of a breakup or a whatever, or a lack of, like, your body is telling you something. Your body doesn't want to be alone. You're lonely. You're going to take stuff that makes you less anxious and less depressed. You should not be lonely. Seek a way out of loneliness, because really you're alone. Your body's telling you, I'm dying. I'm dying. You think, oh, what if I just live in my apartment and I have my job and, like, I study and, like, I do this and I have some friends I see on a Friday, like, everything should be fine, right? But it's not fine. Your body's telling you it's not fine, because your body knows. Your body knows. If you don't have immediate family, and I'm not even being picky here, what kind of immediate family? If there's no children in your life, if there's not a romantic partner in your life, something. I'm not saying replace it with, like, a pet. Be real. You're just scratching that itch in a way that, once again, is not real. If you just get a dog or something. Your body wants to exercise. Your body wants to be out in nature. Go into the forest. Like, what? Your body is telling you what it needs to be doing. And maybe we need to follow that a little bit more and stop suppressing our instincts. But that's my very, like, philosophical take on that. I know that might not be realistic. Someone's actually suffered, like, horrendous abuse and needs to take something like that. I'm not saying that applies here. But also, are we suppressing rage? Like, something horrible's happened. I don't know. Like, you have a horrible, abusive family. Are you suppressing rage? Well, rage. Like, be angry. Go. Like, maybe you need to seek vengeance on whatever it is that's made you so upset that your life has just become crippled from it. Maybe you need to be angry. Maybe you need to seek revenge. Maybe you need to pursue a romantic partner. Like, you've got the internet. I don't know. Write to, like, 2,000 people. Find friends. Find romantic partners. Like, just do it. Oh, that was the same link. Never mind. Skip up. Vertigo Politics says, according to Aristotle, republics are only possible among homogeneous ethnic groups, while tyranny flourishes in highly fragmented cultures. Multi-ethnic society is the hallmark of despotic rule, for it lacks philia, the fraternity of citizens, which derives from genetic kinship. And that was just so beautiful. I couldn't really, and let's look at his face here. The statue. I couldn't really add anything to it. It's just, I love that, like, the philia, like, these different words for love that they have back then, where now we're like, oh, love. And we use the word love way too much. It's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. But one of the most easy to tap into, I think, fundamental, like outside of like dopamine, that's easy to tap into. Like, oh, this is exciting. Oh, this is new. Dopamine is super easy to tap into. But another thing that's, I think, maybe the next easiest thing to tap into is this whole philia, this whole love of family, love of people who are like you, love of people who are similar to you. Like wanting to hear the perspective of someone who shares your perspective. And doesn't that tie into the Wasian? Isn't that beautiful? We're closing the circle. We're closing the circle of the Mother Wolf show for today. And that was not on purpose. That was just something I put in my notes. But the fraternity of citizens, which derives from genetic kinship, people don't want to feel alone. They don't want to feel alone in their experiences. They don't want to feel on the outside all the time. Angry Aussie says ancient Greece had around 5 different definitions of love. Yeah, I know. I've heard that somewhere. There's like all these different love. It's like passionate love. It's like friendship love, and like, yeah, I think like companionship, like actually having had a companionship, having experiences together, like that's a kind of love, right? There's all these different things. It's really sweet, and I think it says something about the poverty of our culture that this word love, 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 like, oh my gosh, I don't even know when that started. I wonder, like, I want to see like a graph of the usage of the word love, and like it's probably gone up. I don't know. It just feels too much. But yeah, the love we have for when we see ourselves, or you look at a child, you go, oh, that child reminds me of me when I was a child. You're like, oh, now I kind of care about that child a little bit more, you know? It's that sort of thing. And yeah, I think we just dismiss that in society, and we fragment the culture so much. We fragment society so in so many ways, like even just housing affordability. You can't really buy a house near your parents or grandparents because they're going to live somewhere that they bought a house for like 200,000 and now it's worth like 2.5 million. So just pressures like that tear families apart, and that those beautiful relationships between people who are close and share those ethnic ties is harder to establish. But hey, maybe we need to do what the Wasians are doing, is just put it out there, put posters and have fun and be positive and have these ethnically inspired get-togethers. I think it's so cool and really interesting. And that's the end of the Mother Wolf show. Good night, everyone.